9 months. 9 months was the last time that I made a tier list. But that is a complete lie, because just a few days ago on my Twitch channel, we actually ended up doing a raid weapon tier list, and a ton of you guys came out. We had a lot of good conversations as to what was good, what wasn't, why this is in that tier, and everything like that. And it was a good time. It took us about 2 hours to make the tier list, but we did. And originally, I was going to edit down that live stream into today's video for you all to enjoy. But me and my infinite wisdom decided to play music fairly loud the entire time, and editing that down into a video wouldn't really work, essentially. So we're going to forget that happened, but you guys should totally follow the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/demonjoe. We stream 4 times a week. I would love to see you over there. We're going to pretend that that didn't happen, and we are going to rank the raid weapons in Destiny 2. All 48 of them. And the last time that I did this, like I said, was 9 months ago whenever VoG first came out. And my opinions on things have changed drastically, actually. So, yeah, it should make for an interesting tier list today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. If you enjoy the video today, make sure to leave a like. If you want to see more from me, hit that subscribe button. And let's just jump into this. Also, before we get too deep into this tier list, I ended up making this on tiermaker.com myself, and if you guys want to use this template to create your own tier list and maybe post on Twitter, it'll be in the description. Speaking of Twitter, you know, follow demonjoefrance. Heard he's a crack Twitter account, should definitely check him out. Aside from that, I think it's important that we define what each tier means. So trash tier, I would put something in this tier if I think it just has no reason to exist, like it just serves zero purpose in the game whatsoever. D tier, I would define as bad. You know, if a weapon's bad, goes in D tier. C tier, I would say is mid. You know, it's not good, it's not bad. It's just mid, it's in between. It's just a mid weapon. B, I would define as good. A, I would define as great, you know, that's a step up from good. And then S, I would define as like an actual demigod, holy shit balls, this weapon is insane kind of tier. So we're just kind of pretending that S doesn't exist, and then we have, you know, great, good, mid, bad, awful, and then S is just like above, in the clouds of heaven is basically where that tier is. The last thing before I start ranking this is that, of course, I feel like this should go without saying for the people that watch my channel regularly, but this is a PvE tier list specifically. I think it's going to be in the title as well, but I want to say that in the video because I know some people are going to comment, well, you know, 𝗏𝗏𝗃 Revenge is cracked in PvP. Why do you have it? So yeah, I just want to go and say that this is a PvE specific tier list. Let's get it. So we're going to go and start off with the raid exotics. Now, all of this is going to come from non-sunset raids, so you can actively run the raid and get the exotic. So, you know, things like Anarchy or 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏, that's not going to count because both of those raids are gone and they come from the kiosk now. So, starting off with our first exotic, we have 1,000 Voices. Had this been back in Splicer, I would say, you know, A or S tier. Nowadays, I'd say it's C tier. I don't think it's bad. It's not good enough to be good either. My main thing is that it's decent burst damage. You know, you can honestly clear ads with it pretty well, but the main thing that I would say keeps it out of B is just it's really bad reserve ammo. Like, you can't really use this thing for long, you know what I mean? And it's definitely had a fall from grace from what it used to be. I feel like it could use a bit of a buff because it's one of the coolest weapons in the game, in my opinion, but I'd put it C tier. I don't think it's bad, I don't think it's good. It's just kind of there until Bungie touches it. Next up, we have the Vow of the Disciple weapon exotic, collective obligation. This as well I'm gonna put in C tier. I think it is mid. I really like Datto's review on this weapon. Basically, if you don't really have 2 people using this at a time, you know, you're not really unlocking the true potential of the weapon. It's got some really cool interactions with Void 3.0, and I think it's awesome. I think it looks cool. I like that it's a 4 burst. I like the idea. I just don't think it's worth using my exotic slot. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm at more of a detriment when I have this equipped than whenever I don't have it equipped. I don't think it adds anything to my gameplay. It can just be a fun little mix-up, but it's not good, it's not bad, it's just mid. Now, moving on from there, we have the Garden of Salvation exotic. You know, not a single argument in the entire world could possibly be made as to why this shouldn't be an S tier. If you play any PvE content, you will agree with me. It's an S tier exotic, and there's no denying that. Say what you want about Garden. but the exotic is just absolutely insane. Next up, we have 𝗚𝗔𝗡𝗏. This is bad, man. 𝗚𝗔𝗡𝗏 is just bad. This is basically wannabe Gjallarhorn and just worse in every way. You know, it's like, do you want to deal boss damage? Well, it's not good at dealing boss damage. Do you want to clear ads? Well, it's not really that good at clearing ads. I mean, it's decent. You know, I feel like this is more of a Gambit weapon than anything. It's got more of a presence in Gambit than anywhere else in the game. It just feels like poor man's Gjallarhorn. It's in a weird spot between just ad clear and that's it. You know, Gjallarhorn can do ad clear and it can deal boss damage. It's like a support weapon. And why does this exist? I don't know. I don't think it's worthless enough to be in trash, but yeah, 𝗚𝗔𝗡𝗏, man, it's tough. Scroll down a little bit. We have 𝗨𝗏 mythoclast. Again, in Splicer, I would say that this probably ARS tier nowadays. I think it's good, man. I think Vex is good. I know a lot less people use it, but I think Vex is solid. I think it is a good weapon. You know, if I have this equipped as my primary, I don't feel the same way that I do with Collective Obligation. You have really, really good damage through the base mode of Vex. Then you have the linear mode that does really good burst damage. I just think it's a good weapon, man. I like it. I think people nowadays, because Splicer's gone and stuff, I think people just sleep on Vex, but it's a good weapon. It is a good exotic, especially if you're like a Titan running Path of the Burning Steppes. You can make some dumb builds with this thing, and I'm sure, you know, this tier list is eventually going to get outdated because of Arc 3.0 and Solar 3.0, but when Solar 3.0 comes out, man, Vex might see another resurgence, so gotta put some respect on its name. I think it's a good exotic. Now that all of the exotics are out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the legendaries. I'm just going to go in order of what it is at the bottom of the screen. First up, we have Accrued Redemption. Had you asked me where I would rank this before Witch Queen, I'd probably say A tier. But I'm going to put it in B tier. And I know, you know, some people might disagree with me, but because we have 𝗨𝗏 now, which, you know, if we go ahead and go to D2 Gunsmith, we got Accrued Redemption. It gets a good roll. You know, it's a precision frame. It can get Archer's Tempo, Explosive Head. That's awesome. But we have 𝗨 now, and not only is 𝗨 easier to get, it is the lightweight frame, which in my opinion, I feel like it's better. But you know, it gets Archer's Tempo, it gets Explosive Head. I know a lot of people like Archer's Tempo Successful Warm-Up, so it's just got more variety as well, on top of being a frame that I prefer. So I know that 𝗨 isn't a raid weapon, right? But because of its existence, I feel as though it brings down the value of Accrued Redemption from where it previously was. So I guess just skipping ahead, to give you guys an example of what I feel kind of helps show off what I'm trying to say here. We have Tyranny of Heaven. I would say that that's an A tier bow, and the reason that I say that is because it's the only legendary solar bow in the game. And so currently, until we get more legendary solar bows, I feel like this, for instance, would deserve A tier in a similar way as to why Accrued got bumped down, because Tyranny of Heaven, this comes from, you know, Last Wish. It's a lightweight frame, and it, again, gets that Archer's Tempo Explosive Head roll, which is arguably the most important bow roll that you can get, you know? It can be a bit of a bitch to get, let's be honest, because I'm still missing the God roll, but Tyranny of Heaven is one of those cases where it's literally a one-of-a-kind weapon, and, you know, we constantly are using bows inside of in-game content because of champion mods, and, you know, if you're not using Tikus or you have your exotic slot taken up and you need a solar bow, this is the only one you can use, and it's a good archetype, and it's got a really good roll. So moving on, going back in order, we have Age-Old Bond. I'm gonna put this in D tier. This is a Void 360 auto rifle, and Age-Old Bond, man, I would have it in trash tier. The only reason I'm not putting it in trash tier is because of the fact that it's Void, and volatile rounds and Void 3.0 has given this thing a lot of life. You know, it's got triple tap, kill clip, high impact reserves, dragonfly. It's whatever, you know, it's not that great. In my opinion, the best 360 we have in the game is the Gambit one, and this doesn't even come close to that. It's just, it would be a trash weapon were it not for volatile rounds. So Age-Old Bond, it earns itself a place in the D tier. Moving on, we have Ancient Gospel. I think this is definitely a mid-tier weapon, C tier. There's not really many solar hand cannons that we got in the game, and that's kind of where Ancient Gospel kind of found itself, you know, in the sandbox. It's got good rolls, you know, it's got rapid at kill clip, it's got outlaw kill clip or dragonfly, but you know, annual skate is a thing, man. And in my opinion, whenever it comes to hand cannons, payload perks are king. You know, permanent damage increases that just sit there, triple tap, time payload. This was even sold by the gunsmith during loss. This weapon was available for 6 months. So if you're an in-game player and you care about that kind of stuff, you probably already have this. And I feel like, you know, were it not for annual skate, maybe I would put Ancient Gospel in the B tier, but yeah, it's just, I'm not really a fan of hand cannons if they're not rocking payload perks, man. That's kind of like my minimum, you know, whenever it comes to whether or not I'm going to enjoy it. And that's me, you know, I know some people are different, but I'm personally going to throw Ancient Gospel in the mid tier. Up next, we have Apex Predator. Trash. Not even going to think about it a second time, man. If there is a weapon that has been more power creep, you know, I don't know of one that has been more power creep than the Apex Predator, man. Kill clip, auto loading snap, ambitious Genesis track. I mean, what are you doing? You know, who is using this, right? Nobody's using Apex. It serves zero purpose in the game. We have like Code Duello, we have Hez and Vengeance, we have Ascendancy, all of which are solar. Why would you would never ever use Apex Predator. So I'm gonna have to throw it in trash tier. Next up we have Bequest. I don't know if I would call it bad. I wouldn't call it bad. I want to call it bad, but I'm not going to call it bad. Bequest is, it's a sword. It's interesting. It can get a cool roll. So this is an arc sword. It comes from DSC. It's got surrounded, so you can get a 30% damage increase, which is dope. It's one of the few arc swords in the game. It's just a sword, you know, it does what it's supposed to do correctly. So I can't really say too much that's like bad about it. So I guess I'll put it in the mid tier. Moving on from there, we have the 𝘁𝗏𝗏. This is gonna be our next A tier weapon. I know some people might be surprised, like, Joey, why aren't you gonna put it in the S tier? And there's a reason for that. As far as linears are concerned, you know, I know that Reed's isn't a raid weapon, but if I were to have a linear in the S tier, it would probably be Reed's Regret. And my main reason for that is because looking at 𝘁𝗏𝗏, it's a very situational type of linear. The god roll for this thing is 4th times and Focus Fury, and of course you also have high impact reserves. But the bad thing about this, you know, the god roll for this weapon, whether it's Focus Fury or high impact with 4th times, is that you need to have a build-up, you know, to get to the point where you're truly benefiting from the role you have. And 4th times can be a bit annoying to proc, man, you know, inside of anything that isn't a raid. You know, if you're shooting a really beefy boss, like a GM boss or a raid boss, hey, this role is god tier. It is the best in the biz. You're going to get good damage. You're going to get the best ammo economy out of any linear in the game. It's great. But if you're running, you know, just in the middle of a GM, let's say, and you're team shotting a champion, you're not going to be able to use 4th times. You're not going to be able to use Focus Fury. You know, the champion or whoever you're shooting at is going to be dead before you're able to benefit from that. That's kind of where Reed's comes in. You know, Reed's, it can get Vorpal, it can get Firing Line, both of which are usable way more than something like Focus Fury or High Impact, which require you to deplete your mag halfway before you even benefit, right? And then triple tap's just way easier to proc than 4th time. So the reason I put it in A tier is because outside of raids and outside of like the GM boss, you're not going to get too much use out of 𝘁𝗏𝗏𝗏. I mean, maybe if it's like a cute solar burn, then okay, this is really good. But you know, that's like a rotating, that's a rotating nightfall like modifier. And I don't think that alone allows it to be bumped up into S tier. Moving on from there, we have Chattering Bone. And whenever I did my live stream, a few people thought this was a bit controversial, but I'm going to put Chattering Bone in the B tier. I remember I gave this a pretty low rating on my previous tier list 9 months ago, and a lot of people got mad. I've kind of seen the light with Chattering Bone. This comes from Last Wish, and it doesn't really have to do with the role of Chattering Bone. It really has to do with the curated role. Range and reload, kill clip, high impact reserves. This just seems really good because, I mean, you throw all this on, you get a whopping 76 reload speed. You know, you have your 17 zoom, you have, you know, 44 range. That's really good. And the kinetic slot, right, for pulse rifles isn't really too crowded in terms of just really competitive options. And I'm a big lightweight frame guy for pulse rifles. I know a lot of people say that they hit like frozen peas, but I love lightweight frames. You know, the BXR, which I know it's technically its own frame, but it's really a lightweight. You got the BXR, you got the 𝗏𝗏, you know, Chattering Bone. I do like Chattering Bone. And I don't know. I've liked lightweight pulses for a while. I'm a big pulse rifle guy. And I think that kill clip, high impact reserves, light mag, it's just a sick roll. So I think the curated roll on its own lands it in the B tier. Now, possible controversial pick here for the next two, but Commemoration, B tier, Corrective Measure, A tier. People, for one, sleep on machine guns way too much nowadays. I feel like I'm the only person that just really loves machine guns. But I also feel like a lot of people really like the Commemoration more than the Corrective Measure, and I don't understand that. Now, they're both good, but the Corrective Measure, in my opinion, is a clear better winner, and I'm gonna show you why. So Commemoration, if we pull it up and we take a look at its rolls, really good perks. It's got Reconstruction. This is going to give it almost, actually it is going to give it over 100 in the magazine. It's also a slow version of auto loading. And in the final column, we have either Dragonfly or Rampage. Of course, you're going to want to go with Rampage here. Now, I know that Rampage, and I constantly and actively say that Rampage isn't a good perk, especially nowadays with the damage perks that we have. Rampage just isn't as good as it used to be. And if you're running master content like I'm constantly running that kind of stuff, Rampage sucks, man. It is a 3.5 seconds between kills before your buff goes away, and you have to gradually build it up compared to something like, you know, One for All that's gonna give you a bigger damage buff for only hitting 3 targets instead of killing them and give it to you for longer, or something like Frenzy, which is just a constant, you know, damage buff that you get. But Rampage on machine guns is great. You know, it's really good because enemies and GMs just feel like regular red bars because of how much damage machine guns do. Bungie did a really good job getting machine guns in a good spot. If you haven't used machine guns in Grandmasters, you really should. They're very good. Reconstruction Rampage is a great roll, but Corrective Measure, in my opinion, is much better. Of course, we have way more options here. So a lot of people are going to bring up that it doesn't have Reconstruction, but it kind of does. Rewind wounds, right? This is going to help you just completely fill your magazine back up based on the amount of hits that you had on enemies. That's a version of Reconstruction. Subsistence, this is active Reconstruction, just killing enemies, constantly loading back into the magazine. That's really good. And the Demolitionist, a lot of people sleep on Demolitionist. And it rolls in the first column too, which is crazy. But literally, shoot like 50-something bullets, throw a grenade, boom. Another 50 bullets are added to your magazine. So you're getting that 100 in the mag easily. And if you're getting active enough kills, you're getting your grenade back before you run out of your magazine. So you can just keep throwing nades and reloading. But in the final column, we also have Adrenaline Junkie. We have One for All, and then we have Firefly, which is better than Dragonfly. And so, you know, One for All is a better damage buff than Rampage. Adrenaline Junkie in demo, dude, with volatile rounds now, you literally throw your grenade to reload your magazine, right? You kill an enemy, you get 35 or 33% damage and volatile rounds all at the same time. It's insane, you know? I just think the perks are better on Corrective Measure. It can also get an adept version. I think Commemoration is good. It is a good weapon, but it is not a great weapon. And a great weapon is Corrective Measure, in my opinion. Moving on, Deliverance. The one-of-a-kind fusion rifle from Val. This is basically null composure, but stasis. Easy B tier. This is a good weapon. Now, obviously, you're not going to be using this thing in in-game content and whatnot, but I mean, dude, compulsive reloader. Where's compulsive? Compulsive reloader and chill clip. I mean, come on now. You're telling me you don't want to have compulsive and chill. It's a good weapon, you know? I think it being a one-of-a-kind weapon earns itself this spot alone, but the perks are really good. Even if you're not running that, you can run Demo, and you can run Adrenaline Junkie, or, you know, you just have a lot of options here. Deliverance is good. B tier, easily. Moving on, we have Fatebringer. It's an S tier, you know? There's nothing you could tell me to possibly not have this weapon in the S tier. And that's not nostalgia. I know a lot of people are like, well, Joey, you played D1. No, it's not. Vault of Glass was my least favorite raid in that game anyways. yeah, Fatebringer is just cracked, and it's even better nowadays if you think about it. The god roll for this weapon is, of course, Explosive Frenzy. I know a lot of people like Firefly, and that's cool. You know, Firefly is nice, but Explosive Frenzy, that's what you want. A permanent 11% damage buff on top of a 15% damage buff with a reload speed. I mean, you're looking at, you know, 26% damage almost all the time through every single shot. If you want to get crazy, you can do Kill Clip. You know, you can get 44% damage after you proc Kill Clip, which is great. A role that I haven't really seen many people talk about, and I might make a standalone video on this, is actually Osmosis and Adrenaline Junkie. This goes insane with volatile rounds because you throw your grenade, you swap your weapon to Void Element, you kill an enemy, you get 33% for your Adrenaline Junkie, and because you killed your enemy, you proc volatile rounds at the same time. And now because of Osmosis, your Fatebringer is Void. I mean, bro, like, dude, this weapon is crazy now, you know? So Fatebringer, yeah, there's no contest. It's S tier. If you want to argue with me, throw your opinion in the trash. I'm not listening. Okay, that was maybe a little harsh. Next up, Forbearance. It's S tier, man. Now, I think I like 𝗟𝗓𝗪 a little bit more just because whenever it comes to wave GLs, you always have to be able to see the floor before you shoot. And like if an enemy's above me, I can just shoot my salvo up at them and explode them and get chain reaction. But Forbearance is great, you know. I think this weapon is definitely a sleeper pick inside of GMs, but it's really good, man. You got Ambitious, you got Chain Reaction, that's your salvo roll. When Arc 3.0 comes out, maybe Golden Tricorn might be good, but damage perks aren't really too crazy on these things. But your main reason's probably, you know, your main thing here is going to be Chain Reaction. It's just a good weapon, man. It's the best wave frame we've ever seen. It's really cracked. When Arc 3.0 comes out, this thing's probably going to get even better. So easy S tier for the Forbearance. Next up, we have Found Verdict. Obviously, pellet shotguns are not good in PvE, maybe outside of 1-2 punch. I'm going to put this in the mid tier. I don't think it's good because pellet shotguns just aren't good. It can get some good rolls like Rewind Wounds and Warple Weapon, which I think, you know, if pellet's got a proper buff, maybe that'd be great. It's also a decent 1-2 punch shotgun, but yeah, it's just mid right now. Pellet shotguns is just unfortunate. That's just the meta. You know, it's not Found Verdict's fault. It's just the meta. Moving on, we have Heritage, man, and this again might be a controversial take, but I'm putting it in the A tier, man. I don't think it's too crazy to be in the S tier. I think that Heritage is great. It is a great weapon, but I don't think it is a godlike weapon, especially with the recent arrival of Fortissimo, which can get like 4th times and Vorpal. I never really liked Heritage's like recombination perk on the final column for basically just one big burst of damage and that's it. Whereas Fortissimo with like something like Vorpal, you just get constant damage the whole time. Yeah, I don't think it's S tier, man, and that might be controversial to some, but we're not really in a slug meta anymore. We technically are because double slug and rocket is like a great DPS meta, but nobody's really doing that because it's really annoying to set up. Yeah, I think Heritage is A tier. No disrespect to it. I just don't think it can run with the greats. Up next for the 𝗏𝗏 Vengeance. This is the rocket from VoG. Again, might be another controversial take, but 𝗏𝗏 is going to have to go in the B tier. This is a good weapon, and I'm going to explain why. And this was a conversation that I had with my stream, and I have to agree with them. 𝗏𝗏 is good, man. It's really good. It can get Overflow, Impulse, Auto-Loading, of course, with Lasting Impression in the final column. But the main meta that we found ourselves in is the Izanagi rocket meta, and this weapon just doesn't really work there. Now, granted, it is aggressive frame, so it has more damage than pretty much any other rocket, right? But it doesn't have tracking. Explosive Light's also a really nice thing to have for Izanagi rocket. Of course, Lasting Impression works too, but you know, the handling is bad. It doesn't have built-in tracking, so you're more apt to miss your rockets, especially if an enemy's moving around a lot, like Rulk. I just don't think it belongs in the great tier, you know? I think if I were to include other weapons, I think Palmyra would be an S, then Royal Entry would be an A, and then 𝗏𝗏 would be an B. Moving on from there, we have the Insidious, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't know whether I want to put this in S tier or A tier, but I'm gonna go with my gut, and you can call me biased, but I think Insidious is an S tier weapon. Now, I know that the Insidious weapon frame does not apply to everyone. Not everybody likes it, but the 4 burst pulses, they feel so good. I don't even think they need a damage perk, if I'm being 100% with you. But this is one of the most diverse weapons we have in the game. This is the first time we've seen Dragonfly, I think in the first column, since Black Armory, right? You know, we have Dragonfly, we have Stats for All, we have Demo in this column as well, Rapid It, it's craftable, we have One for All here, we have Vorpal Weapon, Adrenaline Junkie. It's just, it's a really, 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 really good weapon. It's hard hitting, it's fantastic in hard content. I think it's the best pulse rifle in the game. I think similarly with Fatebringer, where this is the king of all hand cannons, at least in the kinetic slot, Insidious is the king of all pulse rifles, at least in that energy slot. I just think it's really good. Just really good, man. I love this weapon. It's my favorite weapon in the Witch Queen expansion. Call it personal bias. I'm gonna put it in S tier. Moving on to the 𝗏𝗡𝗓𝗏 Ruin. Yeah, man. Yeah, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Ruin. Ouch. Ouch. I don't think that 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Ruin is... It's just bad, man. It's just really, really bad. It's just worse than the Enigma, in my opinion. You know, like, I don't know why 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's Ruin even exists, if I'm being honest with you. Like, you know, we got Grave Robber, Vorpal Swash, Surrounded, I guess, but I feel like Enigma just has better perk options here. Enigma's also Void, so volatile rounds are cool. But, like, dude, I'm not a glaive guy. I don't think 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's Ruin is cool. I just think it exists, man. And it's just, glaives are so disappointing to me. Some really big glaive people might get mad at me for putting it in trash tier, but man, I don't think it's deserving of anything higher. I don't like it, man. Moving on from there, we have Nation of Beast. Boom. Easy B tier, man. I mean, Nation is the Fatebringer before Fatebringer here in D2. It gets good rolls in the just across the board. You know, Outlaw Dragonfly is what it's most known for, but a more in-game friendly role would be like Outlaw and Explosive Payload or Ambitious Explosive Payload. It's a really good hand cannon. I feel like Cantata has it beat for sure, which is why it's in B and not A. Cantata is just objectively better as an arc hand cannon, but this is good, man. It's a great weapon. Moving on from there, we have Omniscient Eye. This is another trash tier weapon. Of course, you know, this weapon is mainly PvP, but that's not what the tier list is about. Who is rocking Outlaw Multi-Kill? I mean, why does Multi-Kill Clip exist on a sniper to begin with? Rapid fire frame, no less. Dragonfly, Rampage, you know, on a sniper. No, this is like the worst sniper in the game. Like, actually, it's really bad. So Omniscient Eye is going to have to go in the trash tier. Up next, we have Posterity, man. Does it deserve to go in the same category as B? As Nation of Beast? I don't know. I'm going to put it in C tier for this video. Some of you guys might disagree. Now, Posterity is the best 180 hand cannon in the game for PvE. Rapid It, One for All, Fourth Times, One for All, Reconstruction, One for All. It's got redirection as well. It's good for a 180. You know, that's really all I gotta say. It's a 180. Nobody uses 180s all that often in PvE. This is the best 180 of the bunch, in my opinion, but it's just, it doesn't, I don't know, man. Like, I wouldn't ever use Posterity over anything else. Like, in casual content, Posterity is great because it can one-shot some of the red bars, but the second you start getting into like legend difficulty, master difficulty, grandmaster, I don't know. Posterity's just, it's there, you know. I'm gonna put it in C tier. I know I'm disrespecting Posterity a little bit, but I don't think it deserves to run with Nation of Beast. I feel like putting it and Nation in the same category is kind of disrespected Nation, you know what I mean? Moving on, we have Praetor's Revenge. Arguably what could be the best rapid fire frame sniper in the game. I'm gonna put it in the mid tier. The biggest thing with Praetus, man, for me, is that it doesn't work with div, you know? And the only time you ever use a sniper that is like this is in a raid scenario where, like, you have no more ammo and you need something else. You know, back when I was doing day one vow, you know, I was using Thoughtless as my weapon that I would swap to after I ran out of sleeper ammo while we were at boss. And, you know, snipers nowadays, that's really all they are in the meta, is kind of just used whenever you have nothing else as far as ammo is concerned. And this just, it doesn't work with div, man. Rewind rounds doesn't work with div. If it did, probably A tier, but it doesn't, man. And that's a big deal breaker, especially for console players. It'll feel damn near unusable. Moving on, we have Prophet of Doom. This is basically worse Found Verdict, so I'm going to put it in the D tier. Yeah, Found Verdict, you know, outside of 1-2 punch has way more going on. This only can use 1-2 punch, and the first column perks don't really support that playstyle. So I'm going to put it in the D tier. Next up, we have Reckless Oracle. I would previously had put this in the C tier, but Volatile Rounds, yeah, it bumps it up to B tier. It gets some pretty good rolls. You know, Reckless Oracle used to be my favorite gun in the game back when I first started playing Destiny again. My friends took me through Garden of Salvation as like my first raid being back, and you know, I liked it, and I got this weapon, and I ended up getting Outlaw Swash, but I think the real role that you probably want is probably Outlaw Kill Clip. That's probably the best thing that you can get here. Just get a 33% damage buff, get that nice reload speed, get your, you know, volatile rounds and stuff if you're running that. I feel like if it weren't for Void 3.0, this probably be in the C tier, because of course we got things like Gnawing Hunger now, and Gnawing Hunger is just insane. But Reckless Oracle, it can chill in B tier. I think it deserves it. Sacred Providence, put this in A tier, man. This is one of the best kinetic pulses in the game. It doesn't necessarily have the perk set to push it to S tier, but I still think it is I think you could argue it's the best in slot for kinetic. I know there's some people that like their messenger and some people that like their legal action and stuff, but I think that Rapid Hit, Kill Clip, Sacred Providence is just a fantastic weapon, man. Fantastic. It's really good. Maybe I'm overrating this weapon. I'm sure some people will say that I am, but again, I'm a big pulse rifle guy. I know a good pulse when I see it, and hot damn, Sacred Providence is a good pulse rifle. Speaking of good, we have Submission. You know, this thing is overrated on the level that Funnel Web is overrated. Putting this in the B tier, man. I think Multi-Mock is a better kinetic option. I think Extraordinary Rendition is a better kinetic option. A lot of people forget that Multi-Mock, you know, I know we can't farm it yet. We'll probably be able to farm it next season. But dude, Subsistence 1 for All with the crazy zoom value that you can get with these scopes and the range. This, in my opinion, is the king whenever it comes to 900s. That is just a insane perk combination. But as far as Submission is concerned, I mean, it gets good perks, you know. It gets Subsistence, Overflow, Frenzy. You get Demo in that final column if that's your thing. It also gets the Origin trait. But, you know, I've used Submission a lot. I think it's an okay feeling weapon, but I don't think it's great. I don't think it's godlike. You know, I think it's good. I think it's a good weapon. Speaking of godlike, though, Succession, man. This is one of the best sniper rifles ever in the game. Unfortunately, we're not in a sniper rifle meta. However, what we are in is aggressive frames just taking over. You know, like I said earlier about Praetus and snipers like it, you mainly use these in like contest mode raids when you got nothing else as far as ammo is concerned. But with Succession, this is one of those like neutral game sniper rifles that you just use whenever, like in a GM, right? Reconstruction, Lead from Gold, and Vorpal. If you want good burst damage, you know, you're not trying to deal DPS. You're just trying to burst down a champion, let's say. I mean, dude, back when Season of the Chosen, you know, when we had anti-barrier sniper, hot damn, you could not separate me from Succession. This thing is just the GOAT. It still is the GOAT. It's the best sniper in the game, in my opinion. I just think it's great, man. You know, we're not in a DPS sniper meta, so I can't ever really put a DPS sniper in that category. But, hey, I can put Succession in S tier and not even think twice about it. Next up for the trash tier, we got the Techian Force, baby. This thing gets double damage perks, but unfortunately for it, the fusion rifle meta has shifted to crowd control and ad clear, you know? Whenever you think of fusion rifles, you think of Reservoir Burst, you think Chill Clip, you know, you think about killing big groups of enemies. This has none of that. It's one of those weapons that's like Apex Predator in the sense that it got big power crept. So it's just kind of chilling, you know, it's kind of there. Next up, we have the Supremacy. I think I'm going to put this in the C tier with Praetus. Now, where Praetus is in the C tier because it's it doesn't work with Div, right? Supremacy is kind of in the C tier for the same, you know, kind of thing, right? Where it's missing something. And what Supremacy is missing is it's missing a damage perk. Because unfortunately, you know, rapid fire frames are great as a DPS option, but this thing gets triple tap and then what, you know? Outlaw Ambitious Assassin maybe helps with the whole DPS output, but like, you know, normally you want something like that's going to give you extra damage. Think of the Ikelos sniper that gets like 4th times and high impact reserves. That's going to help you deal damage. Supremacy, It gets triple tap, but it's kind of missing that other area of the gun. So I think it does have potential to be B, but unfortunately, unless its perk pool gets updated, probably going to keep it in C. Transfiguration, dude, I hate this archetype. Transfiguration, D tier, easy. It's a bad archetype. There's better weapon, like the 𝗏𝗏, I think it's called the 𝗏𝗏, which is the stasis scout rifle, definitely way better. I mean, this thing gets outlaw explosive payload as its curated role, which is great. The regular role it can get is rampage kill clip, which is nice. But I mean, we take a look at the 𝗏𝗏 D, which is the world loot weapon, stasis synergy, and it gets rapid hit explosive, which is better. It can get stats for all, one for all, if that's your thing. Maybe shoot to loot, headstone, I don't know, you know. But this thing just completely outclasses it as far as the high impact frame is concerned. This is just a really bad weapon. Next up, we have the 𝘏𝗏, and again, this might be controversial. I'm going to pair these next two together like I did with commemoration and corrective measure. I think 𝘏𝗏 is mid. I think Vision of Confluence is good. And definitely, this is 100% going to be a personal opinion thing, you know, between people. But I don't mind 180s, and I think Vision of Confluence is one of the best, most underrated scout rifles in the game. It's not the best scout rifle. It's one of the most underrated, though, and it's got some really good perks that help support it. Now, 𝘏𝗏 is an interesting weapon because in the first column, you get reconstruction. Obviously, you just get a shit ton of ammo. That's great. Second column, redirection and high impact. You can't really use high impact reserves because that doesn't work with reconstruction. So you really just have redirection where you just shoot a low tier enemy and then shoot a high tier enemy. So you build up stacks by shooting, you know, minor enemies, and then you shoot major enemies and boss enemies, and you use those stacks for damage. Redirection's a cool concept. I just don't really like it in practice. I love rapid fire frame scouts. They're my favorites, like 𝗍𝗓's, 𝗍𝗓's Embrace and contingency plan and stuff like that. Love the frame, but I don't love this perk. I wish there was more going on as far as the second column's concerned. Now with Vision, this is another solar scout rifle. This is one of the only weapons that's going to roll Wellspring in the first column. It's one of the only weapons that ever does this. It can get 𝗍𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗡 in the first column as well, and then also gets Firefly, Kill Clip, Frenzy. I think Wellspring Frenzy is one of the coolest rolls that you can get. This weapon just feels phenomenal. The sight's great. Just massively underrated, in my opinion. A good, solid scout rifle. 𝘏𝗏, in my opinion, leaves some to be desired. Again, I know it's controversial to put it in the C tier, but I'm having to slap it there. Lastly, we have the Zealot. The only thing keeping this thing out of trash is the fact that it's Void, baby, and Void 3.0. If it's Void, it can be better than trash. And Zealot's going to earn itself in the D tier based off of that alone. This is one of those weapons that is interesting because it's really outclassed by others before it. It's a rapid fire frame. You know, you could go like Feeding Frenzy Rampage and just absolutely slay out on enemies. But whenever I think of, like, you know, a good Void, you know, fusion rifle, I think of Snorri. This is basically better null composure. It gets compulsive reloader as well as reservoir burst, which is better than Feeding Frenzy in my opinion with null. And then if you really just want to like kill everything, Likely Suspect goes dumb. Stats for all, golden tricorn, or stats for all, one for all. You are just going to slay out with this thing. And Zealot wishes it could be a Likely Suspect, but, you know, it's Void. It keeps itself out of the trash tier. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is my official Destiny 2 raid weapon tier list, all 48 weapons ranked, hopefully in a timely manner and with good explanation behind every single weapon. I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. Again, I really wish I could have got this to you guys, you know, via the live stream highlights and stuff. I figured that would have been a lot more fun because we had a lot of banter between me and Chad. It was a good time. But hopefully you guys can just check out the Twitch stream and have those moments with us live. But now I hope that this video sufficed. You know, I hope you guys did enjoy. It's definitely not as edited or heavily edited as my normal content. I just wanted to sit down and have a conversation. You guys could throw this video on in the background while you work or do whatever, and we could just conversate about weapons, man, because that's one of my favorite things to do. With that that said though, that's gonna do it for me, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Shout out to all of my Patreon supporters, as well as my tier 2 supporters, Admist, Vile, John, Homebase Serenity, and Crunchwrap, as well as my tier 3 supporters, Neon, 𝘁𝗵𝗂'𝗏, Austin, and Glumia. If you guys would like to support me on Patreon, get behind the scenes content and everything in between, definitely suggest checking out the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video and helping support the content, and I'll see you guys next time.